was up before the graph before from the World Health Organization that shows the decline in dental decay in nations both fluoridated and non-fluoridated, partly explained by the fact that the fluoride is so ubiquitous now because of overuse and because of the fact most of it's going into the environment when you fluoridate in municipal water supply. Remember, it's not going to bodies.
Most of it's going out to the wastewater treatment plant. And also, in the way water systems work, is the closer you are to the plant, the more disinfectant you get, and then the more fluoride you would get further where you are from the plant. So in terms of dose, there is no dose control at all.
That's right. Absolutely.
So we want to open it up for questions. We do have a microphone right here.
Sorry.
And you can go to the microphone up that.
Just the precautionary principle in public health says that to err on the side of safety and health rather than make a decision that might be risky. The studies are out there. It's all risky. The EPA has said they need to study to open up, but they've never open up studies, but they've never done it since 2006. The precautionary principle.
May I add to that? Just want to add to that if I could. This is from 2003, the International Journal of Occupational and Environmental Health. This is from Cross and Carton. Silicofluorides, widely used in water fluoridation, are unlicensed medicinal substances administered to large populations without informed consent or supervision by a qualified medical practitioner. Fluoridation fails the test of reliability and specificity, and lacking toxicity testing of silicofluorides constitutes unlawful medical research. Okay? 98% of Western Europe is non-fluoridated. In some of those nations, 5, they recognize the freedom of choice to the point where they allow citizens to take fluoride by mouth, by choice, with their salt, fluoridated salt. Austria, France, Germany, Spain, and Switzerland.
So we have a question.
Could you do me a favor and call up the slide of the fertilizer plant?
Sure.
My name is Joe Culkin. I'm running for a seat on the select board, and I'm just trying to get as much information as I can.
And this actually, and this says sodium fluoride. It should say chlorosilic acid.
So just from a common sense point of view, 3 types of fluoride, one of those 3 would be used for our water.
Yeah.
Would all 3 of them originate starting
All
with
3
that?
of them, yes.
So that's what it starts at, a byproduct from that.
It is also, one thing that nobody said is that, one thing, is that all of the sodium chlorosilicate, and hydrofluorosic acid are all contaminated with whatever's in the ore, which can be arsenic, there's quite a bit of arsenic in it, lead, mercury, beryllium, whatever's in the ore. And those things are also
But
biological.
what I guess I'm trying to get at, what you see in that photo right there, this is what it starts as, and it ends up in our mouth.
Well, actually, if it were to go out the stacks, then it would require EPA approval, and that's one reason that they put it in water instead, is because it's
Right, at the end,
part of the approval.
beginning to end process of, trying to get the powder or the liquid that it does. But that's the very beginning stage of fluoride.
That's right.
And in fact, the company where Kathleen got the bag from the city of Rutherford, she sent
No, it
me
wasn't a bag, it was
a label.
yes.
And so I typed in the address on Google Earth, and it went straight to the fertilizer plant, the phosphate plant. You saw the white settling ponds, and that came directly from Florida, from Mosaic.
Yeah, at some point, Mr. Coffey, what happened was they lowered the level for arsenic, the MCL, about 10 parts per billion. It had been higher at one point. But there's a difference between an MCL and an MAL. And you want to know that the maximum contaminant level is the allowed maximum in water. But when you take a substance to fluoridate a municipality's water supply, you have a tight control. And so you're looking at trying to make sure that you don't have more than 1/10 of that MCL in the water as a contaminant because of the nature of fluoride being highly reactive source that Dr. Miller pointed out. You have the potential for a number of these things to be in such small amounts that sometimes it's hard for the normal testing to pick it up, but they're there. And in fact, there was a little bit of a controversy in the sense that when you get something like arsenic, since at 10 parts per billion, you're looking at 1 some municipalities that had a failure on the test, if they have, some of them are over 1 part per billion, it's hard to control the contaminants.
I guess all of that just sort of went right over my head, and I was just trying to get to the
Well,
very
every time-
beginning point, the very beginning point, that will end up in my mouth, because what the basic process is.
Well, not just your mouth, but your
My body. I guess I wanted folks to be able to see that photo, and the byproduct from that process is what ends up in our bodies. So I just wanted to know that was from A to Z, back to,
What makes the whole issue so controversial is that there are so many different issues you can argue against water fluoridation.
but we talk common sense. I'm just trying to get to the common sense.
Now, the contaminants that are in the product that's coming to Rutland, for instance, the EPA subs out to NSF, the National Sanitation Foundation. So we learned about them when we were working on the chlorine issue. They certify water filters for taste and odor. So one of the issues was, will they remove chlorine? Well, no, but that's not what they really certify for anyway, it's just taste and odor. So it was a surprise to me to learn that NSF is actually the entity that is charged with determining, or at least telling you what the contaminants are.
Oh, but you only, if you're a corporation like this, you only have to test 1 load a year, just for your information.
And maybe NSF, I think, that had a letter where they made the statement that they had some concern because there were some tests that showed 1.62 parts per billion. I believe, I don't want to,
The standard is standard 60. I have been trying to get information on that, and the toxicologist can get it, but she tells me that she cannot share it with anybody. It's secret.
But if you're a regulator, she says she can get it, but she can't share it with anybody. Just to check the box that says she can't share it.
Right.
And that's the
So,
standard
we're working on
for,
that.
that's the standard for this,
Water contaminants
Water contaminants.
in drinking water.
So more questions? We ask you to come to the microphone because that's helpful through television.
Well, my name is Paul Rustino. I'm basically been living in Bennington since 1963. But after looking at all this stuff, I finally decided to put words to paper. And I also have some questions. But this letter to the editor hasn't hit the paper yet. But I titled it Fluoridation Freedom of Choice. And I've been to meetings, watching Cat TV, reading the newspaper, and going online to better understand the issue of water fluoridation. I've seen that the community of this town of Bennington has basically drawn battle lines. He's trying to convince the town select board what they need to do. There has been a petition signed to get the vote placed on the ballot as to whether the town's water supply should be fluoridated or not. I realize that there is an effort to stop the issue of tooth decay, this time in children. The last time this issue came up was about 14 years ago, dealing with tooth decay in the senior population of Bennington. The bottom line is both issues seem to come down to a free agency of the overall population of the town of Bennington who would be affected by the fluoridation of the town's water. Is there a concern to the issue of feelings of those who don't want fluoridation? Are these people feeling that they are being coerced or forced to live with fluoridation in the town's drinking water? When the issue comes to a vote, what will be the outcome? The town's voting history is not the greatest, with only those who care to vote, and while others don't care one way or the other. I hear some complaining about outcomes, and I ask if they would use the vote. Freedom of choice is a principle. There is no coercion about it, no force or intimidation, and at this time we are free to choose between fluoridation or no fluoridation. We are free to choose, but we are not free to alter the outcome of the consequences of our choices. Who is responsible in the condition of the teeth anyway? That letter does not hit the banner yet. So. Now I have some questions. What is the reaction of fluoridation to the various pipings, the various water pipes in our houses? And I know that our system has placed buffers in the water because of the various pipes that we have in our homes.
So Bennington still has some lead pipes, is that right?
I believe it is.
Correct.
It's going on. My question, okay, so what's the reaction of fluoride to those pipes? And what is the reaction, whatever they're using for the washing agent, to reaction to the fluoride that's being kept in here?
I haven't read any studies that said that fluoride would affect the pipe.
Oh, yeah, I can speak to that a bit here.
Okay, Jeff?
Usually what they put in, I think it's a buffering agent, at least to my knowledge, is sodium hydroxide, which is Drano, basically. So along with, it's a nice little cocktail that you're getting when you turn the tap on. And they do that.
This is use of orthophosphate.
Oh, that's right, orthophosphate, that's correct. They do that even without, I think the sodium hydroxide. Well, they do that because it is extremely corrosive, and it will corrode the pipes all throughout the whole system. And there are many water plant operators or the infrastructure people in the town, who complain about. They can see the difference very easily. They're always having to replace pipes. It's really bad. And the other issue that's connected with this is that if there's lead in the pipes, it seems to draw it out. And there have been studies where that show that children have higher lead levels in towns that use fluorosilicics as opposed to towns that use sodium fluoride, with very few use sodium fluoride. So the fluorosilicates seem to somehow, for whatever reason, draw it out of the lead out of the pipes.
Don't get me wrong, it is a poison that you're putting in there. It's not a great concern from when I talk to the people in the water department that we would have a problem here, but you got to remember we got 2,000 gallons of fluoric acid, and there has been accidents all across the country with this stuff. And when it does leak out, or chemical feeder malfunctions, it's the town's responsibility to put a warning system in that's right in place, have a Gillette, have it warn the residents, and a no drinking policy. One thing about fluoride, if it gets into the system, you don't get rid of it by boiling it. That only makes it worse. So, I know right up in, there was an accident with fluoride right up in Shasberry. It was a while back. They had 20 people got over-fluoridated. They had to go to the emergency room and all 9 yards.
Those people will be sick the rest of their lives, by the way.
That fluoride in Shasberry was in the school.
Right.
They had fluoride pumps in schools.
They did.
Why did they take them out? Was it expense, danger, what?
Well, after that, I would say liability.
Well, water disinfection is very complicated, and so when you add one thing, you change other things. pH is something that's very important in water disinfection. And so when you're adding fluoride, that may be more corrosive, so then you may need to add more zinc orthophosphate or sodium hydroxide, because sodium hydroxide is often used to adjust the pH. You're getting into more and more chemicals as you are adding more and more chemicals. So we saw this in the Champlain Water District, which uses chlorine, fluoride. They have now added ammonia. They actually use 8 different chemicals, and every one means you have to add the sodium hydroxide had to be added because of adjusting the pH. So it's a good question, and again, it's one that err on the side of the precautionary principle is going to be different.
Then the other question I had was, someone else said, we just don't use the water to take care of our teeth. And the other thing I thought of was, okay, if you water your lawn, you're going to basically build up the amount of fluoride that's in your lawn as well.
Garden? Vegetable gardens, watering a vegetable garden.
It's a contaminant. It's coming into the environment, And remember, it's bringing all those other contaminants too. They're real. There's arsenic, lead, mercury, all that stuff is in it. Goes up.
One thing that goes along with this is material safety data sheets, and the EPA requires this to be on site for the safety and health of the employees that would be working in the filtration plant. And it tells you exactly what it is, and then it goes on to this corrosive to skin, eyes, mucous membranes through direct contact, inhalation, ingestion may cause severe irritation and burns, which may not be immediately apparent. Handle with extreme care. And it goes on and tells you how to it may cause fluorosis. Fluorosis is characterized by skeletal change consisting of osteosclerosis, hardening of abnormal density, etc., etc. And then it goes on to tell what protective gear is going to be on site. You need gargles and respirators and headgear and protective shoes and clothing. So it's not. It doesn't come to your treatment plant as a benign product. It's going to be a dangerous chemical that arrives here, and it's up to the expertise and the training of the operators to make sure that it's kept safe.
Do we have any more questions? Invite people who are in favor of fluoride. This is your chance to ask the 5 questions.
I have something else to say.
Go ahead, Jen.
Is it Article 13 that is on the ballot?
Article
15? I think that was very designed, it was designed to favor the use of fluoridation. To call it a natural product and say, yes, you support this natural product, just automatically the public is being misled. So I'm very sad to see that. Very sad to see that.
Well, I mean, you're not from here, but
Does somebody have the language? Can you read the language that's on the ballot?
oh, the ballot reads, shall the town of Bennington adjust the natural level of fluoride in Bennington water system to a level recommended for the prevention of tooth decay, twice only. Now, the deal is we covered the natural level of fluoride. The only way you can do that is to use calcium fluoride, and so that's not going to happen. So if you think you're voting for the natural level of fluoride, you're wrong. Also, then in that same article, it says the Bennington water supply. We have 3 sources of water. Does that mean that the public will be? We have to have one for Bold Brook up in Woodford, and then we also have Morgan Spring right in town. Is that going to be fluoride too? Fluoridated, I'm sorry. And then up in North Bennington, we have Basin Brook, and they have a filtration treatment plant on Buck Hill Road. Are all 3 of these water supplies, they're all public water, is that all covered in this article?
And what's the cost of that if there's all 3?
Right, so that's going to be 3 times what
So
everybody's thinking.
we have some people going to ask questions.
Okay. Can I just add this one thing, and I'll get off that? Level recommended, and that's another thing in this article. It says level recommended. Whose recommendation? Certainly not this panel, I'm sure. Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Bree Hunter. I've lived in Bennington 21 out of my 25 years. I run the Bennington Residents Against Facebook page. As a mother of 4 children, just moving back to Bennington after living in Cambridge, New York for 4 years. Coming from highly fluoridated water, it's a big concern to me. That was one of our choices to move back was because, you know, there was no fluoride here, well, the natural levels. So one of the questions that I get asked a lot on my Facebook page from people who are kind of on the fence is, our doctors and our dentists locally are telling us that it's safe. Why shouldn't we trust those doctors and dentists? I mean, I know a lot of parents nowadays, they're busy, some work 2-3 jobs, to make ends meet. So they're not necessarily doing their own research, so I think they're kind of relying more on their doctors and dentists to kind of make that decision for them. I've actually even seen at my own doctor what was going on, the thing that everyone signed, the petition. I couldn't think. They have their own little spiel, like from the CDC, saying why fluoridating our water is good, and I just think people aren't necessarily making their own decisions and kind of going off of other people's decisions, but maybe you could kind of touch base on that.
That's the point I made earlier, that the dentists and doctors themselves are not making their own decisions. They are relying on endorsements. They really do very little research. Frankly, I think even our expert panel, which is giving information to the body that's really pushing this in the town of Bennington, hasn't done really enough.
You mean last week's
I'm talking
expert?
about last week's panel of experts. Several of the people here, I think, asked questions of those experts that they were silenced. They couldn't even answer some basic questions of citizens. How much research can they possibly be doing? And they kept invoking the endorsements of the CDC and the AMA and all that stuff. And that's just empty. I'm sorry. It's just empty.
One of the things about that is quite often you have to remember we are human, and part of humanity is having an inherent imperfection, the capacity to in some way make a mistake. Vioxx, cyclamase, thalidomide, Baycott. These are all substances that at one point were consumed by individuals that had to be removed because they had some sort of significant adverse effects. The retraction or the retreat of the EPA lowered the amount of fluoridation that's used, that is roughly 0.7 parts per million. As I said earlier, it's the equivalent of oops. Okay, it's still not exact science. We still have so much out there. It's so ubiquitous. It's all over the place. That's why dental decay is on the decline. In non-fluoridated as well as fluoridated countries, it doesn't do much at this point. We're exposed to all sorts of different things.
Could I interject? This young mother asked a question here. Mary Lou, she was on this panel, I'm sure would answer it. As a young mother, she raised our children, of course, and we were very young when we got married, and we had a nice little house in a rural community, and we were on well water. And when she got pregnant with our daughter, she dutifully took her to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician says, "Oh, you're on well water. You need fluoride vitamins." So they gave her a prescription for fluoride vitamins. Boom, boom, boom. Lo and behold, 15 months later, she's pregnant again and had another kid. When she took her to the pediatrician says, "Okay, yeah, fluoride vitamins," and she started giving her the fluoride vitamins, and lo and behold, 15 months later, she had another kid. I blame it on the water, but I guess it wasn't. Anyways, it's Bennington. Okay, and so she gave her the fluoride again, and then they grew up, and they started all of their dental checkups, and this tooth was crooked, and that tooth was crooked. And, before you know it, they were talking braces and oral surgery and all that other stuff to clear it up. No cavities, but crooked teeth. Anyways, then in the meantime, we moved to Bennington, and 8 years later, we had a fourth child. And by this time, Mary Lou had done the research and had some questions about fluoride. So she asked the dentist, and he said, well, how many of these kids' teeth are crooked? And they said, well, heredity. Well, neither one of us have crooked teeth. And, so coincidence, well, could be. Okay, so the fourth kid never got fluoride. Never got fluoride. His teeth came in perfectly straight. Not a problem. So, do we have scientific proof? No. Why?
Excuse me.
We got to talk about the elephant in the room,
Fluoridation causes late development of the teeth eruptions.
Correct. That's correct. We found that out now, but nobody's going to admit it back then.
Well, when I look at this same question, which is one that puzzles me the most, really, this was an issue that I really didn't want to get involved in. We worked on the chloramine issue, which there is very little science on. And so I was under the impression that people who wanted to deal with fluoride were, as they branded, kind of Looney Tunes, like or whatever you call it. Well, when I actually, thanks to Kathleen, started looking at the studies, there's a lot of very good studies and a lot of good science on this topic. And it is overwhelming that it is a neurotoxin and poison, and the evidence that it is going to reduce cavities is actually very poor. So I think doctors are very busy. They tend to believe what, and I don't know, maybe they haven't taken a deep dive lately and looked at the studies, because the literature is really quite well developed compared to other issues that, again, EPA is saying that chloramine is safe. The state of Vermont is defending the use of chloramine. We worked with the citizens in the Champlain Water District from 2006 when they started adding chloramine. And the first year, 100 people reported getting sick. In the second year, 200 people. And the third year, we were up to 300 people. And we were like, how many people do we need to show that there's a problem here? And the answer what we got was, well, you'll have to have 50% of the population. That's what they told us. In a district that serves 68,000 people, and I'm talking about some extremely serious health effects. And the attitude of our state government is the same on that as it is. Questions?
Simple question. I'm Edward Journal from Bennington. That ballot article that Mr. Albert read states, shall we increase the natural level of fluoride in our water supply? Does anybody know what the natural level is?
0.11 parts per million.
So they would add how much?
Enough to make it 0.7.
Thank you.
0.5.
Would that, in a water distribution system that has lines that provide water only to residential users, and we have some of those, would that increase as the water laid in the pipes?
It probably would react.
It should not increase in concentration, but it's ability to complex.
To leach other compounds out of the
Water age and holding is a big issue with water disinfection. So it all matters. It's all very complicated. It all matters.
Also, if you're closest to the treatment, whatever that is, well, yeah.
filtration plant.
Right, and they have little ones somewhere. They have mixing stations, substations. If you're closest to that, I know somebody who doesn't drink her water because she's close and she can't get rid of the chlorine. So, because it's higher in the beginning. And that's going to be the same way with fluoride. Whoever is the closest to that substation or that plant is going to get more fluoride.
I have a question following up on that. I know that with chlorine, for instance, the MCL is 4. That doesn't mean it's a limit. It's averaged over a period of time. Would the 0.7 fluoride also be averaged over a period of time? Or is that an absolute number that you can't exceed?
I think what they do is they have a lower limit kind of thing, and you have to get those reports. Those are averages.
There's the average.
So I don't really know.
Well, I know that in general with water disinfection, it is not an absolute, it's not pretty. You can have some very, very high levels of chlorine in your water, but as long as it's averaged out over time, lower levels, as long as you're, and even if you do exceed the 4, which is really, really high for chlorine, doesn't really seem to matter.
You can smell chlorine, you can taste it. fluoride is tasteless and odorless. So you don't know. You turn on your tap, you smell a lot of chlorine, you say, ooh, I'm going to run for a while.
And chlorine you can filter out.
Right.
You can
And
get
you
rid of
can get
filters.
dissipates.
Chlorine, right, well, you can get rid of it by just opening the
Right,
thing, it will disappear. Fluoride will not do that, and fluoride, you can't boil it out either, concentrate.
It concentrates.
Yeah.
So that,
Can I just say something about fluoride naturally found in water? That is a much more stable element. It's not like the chemical that you're putting in the water that is totally unstable. As a negative ion, it attracts everything and anything.
now,
And that's what comes
that
into
raises
water.
a comment that the state toxicologist said last week, that it doesn't really matter whether you're getting calcium fluoride or sodium fluoride or fluorosilicic acid, because it's all comes to you as a fluoride
That
ion.
absolutely matters. It absolutely matters. The calcium fluoride is very stable, and it'll basically, it goes into your body, it's going to pretty much pull together. So it's not going to seek your bones and teeth out as much. And the hydrochloric acid that they put in will dissociate. They even said that it will dissociate. So you have this fluoride and it's sort of going into your body, and it's going to seek out your bones and your teeth. And by the way, your brain and your pineal gland, and a lot of your tissues. Yeah, absolutely, your thyroid. Yes. And I haven't even said anything about health effects. That's really what I'm dealing with a lot. It's too late now, but there are a lot of health effects. Bad time.
And then what you mentioned before is that once you get fluoride poisoning, it affects you for the rest of your life.
If the people who are fluoride poisoned from whatever source they're poisoned, they can be sort of corrected to the point where they can feel okay, except for if they make a mistake and drink a little bit of fluoride water.
And a little tiny bit of fluoride toothpaste got contaminated with my toothbrush on my vacation. I had a severe reaction from a teeny tiny drop.
This I talk to people all the time. And it's true. It's really true.
So we're going to get to closing statements in a few minutes, but I just wanted to talk about the issue, the fundamental issue, the underlying issue that brings us here, which is the oral dental health of the community of Bennington. I wonder what thoughts you all have or that are constructive in terms of what alternatives there are and what can be done instead.
I would like to say that what they call an oral health crisis and the terrible teeth of these poor children, whatever, that is correlated with poverty. It is not about a deficiency of fluoride, and it is nothing that fluoride is going to fix, and that's positive. That's that. It's correlated with poverty because well, when I did this in 2001, I actually called Mass Health, which is the Medicaid version of Massachusetts. And they said, without a doubt, the oral health crisis is because there is a dearth of dentists who will work with poor people. That's the bottom line. And what I would like to say is that it's the dentists that are really concerned about the mouths of poor people, then they really should step up and either lower their rates or give some free time, more than they might be already, to doing that. I do want to thank the Oral Health Coalition for all their work. It sounds like there's steps in the right direction for Bennington to do that kind of thing. But fluoride is not a panacea. It never has been, and it never will be.
Do any of you else have comments on what sorts of things, what programs are going on in Bennington that might benefit the oral health of the community?
Well, there's legislation in the state right now that's talking about a dental assistant program where people could be certified and licensed to go into a community and take care of the preventative care. And it's my understanding that the dentists in Vermont are not supporting that.
So
Dentists never support that anywhere. It's effective.
Right,
So it's
so
something that you could contact your legislators and ask them to support that.
just watch that, it's on the horizon. The other thing I want to is, hey, parents, teach your kids to floss.
Yep.
And when you floss, you make sure you get up each side of the gum so that you're going under the gum and swishing around so that you're moving that bacteria so that it can be flushed away with water. It is probably better than toothbrushing, and it makes you really feel like your teeth are clean. So if you use that, teach your kids to use that, they will use it also because it makes your mouth feel better.
The programs for education for parents is really important. Dental hygiene and nutrition are the two things that will turn an oral health crisis around.
State of Vermont has something called the Tooth Tutor Program. And so earlier I was alluding to the wonderful letter written by Grace Winslow of the Bennington Oral Health Coalition stating there was no swish and spit in Bennington schools since May of 2013, and no dental hygienists for the middle and high schools for 3 years. What we need to do is, instead of having an entire community go into the ballot box to decide what water fluoridation issues, to try to get the entire community to work together with our approachable, responsible, and committed legislators locally to have some pressure put on forth up in Bennington, Montpelier. So, Bennington has a health problem down here and help us out a little bit with more funding so that we are able to get people the appropriate care they need.
So you're saying that there were programs that have dropped?
It's fine. And the thing is, why? And what is going on? Why is the state willing to help fund or subsidize to a certain extent implementation of this water fluoridation initiative and not willing to fund the health of the children and the adults in this town in ways that we don't work? Right. So it's a big problem. I want to point out one thing here. For people at risk, and the people at risk if this goes through are not only the individuals who have liver issues or problems with their kidney function. And remember, the United States has a diabetes epidemic, folks. It's an epidemic of diabetes, which affects kidney health significantly. But the people are also at risk by the select board members. And we have an election coming up. There might be some new board members. If there are, these are the individuals who are going to have, unfortunately, the responsibility shifted to them with this advisory question. Because there's no doctor or dentist writing a prescription assuming the liability. The FDA does not do so because it was not approving even the pharmaceutical grade prescribed for. The EPA has no responsibility because it's not mandatory. It rests on the shoulders of our local selectors. It's unfair to them.
Well, it could end up in litigation, too. There is litigation going on. We have one question.
Hi, my name is Kendra. I'm from Bennington. Earlier, you said something about fluorosis being usually cosmetic, right? If something happens, if it happens.
And that's what the dental industry believes.
So if that happens, why would it be our fault that something happens and then we can't pay for it because insurance usually doesn't help cosmetic problems?
That's correct.
I don't see how they would think that's...
And fluorosis contributes to further tooth decay because the enamel becomes eroded.
So they would just expect us to have to pay all the money to get it fixed as something that's not our control?
41% of adolescents in the United States now suffer from dental fluorosis.
That's from the CDC. The CDC is that number.
41%.
And since your teeth represent just a small repository of the fluid absorbed by the body when you take it from mouth, because most of it goes into your skeleton, that's just an external measure of what's happening elsewhere in the skeleton.
So we're just a few minutes away from our ending time, and I'd like to give you each 1 minute or less to sum up. And Jerry, will start with you.
Okay. The Bennington Oral Health Coalition has worked very hard on this. But I can't help but there's so many statements that come out, and I just want to let people know that fluoride works, but it doesn't have to only work if it comes out of a faucet. There's so many other outlets that can be used to get fluoride if you want fluoride. Dr. Michael Brady of the coalition said here the other night that if we had the preventative health and oral health Finland, we would need water fluoridation. I'm saying to myself, well, how about our little American kids right here in Bennington? Don't they deserve as good a health, oral health maintenance as kids in Finland? We're not a third world country here. We should be able to afford what Finland can afford. So think about it. The article is ill-conceived, and I urge, as one of your fellow citizens, for you to vote no on Article 15.
Kathleen?
I commend the town of Bennington for this fight. That you've been thoughtful and have done this for a number of years, and I certainly hope that comes true again. The other issue is, where do you get your information? It's very, very difficult. I have an editorial back there, pick it up. I actually have a Facebook page called Occupy Rutland, because this is a big issue, and I'm putting all the science on there because I don't know how else to get the information out when we're working against such a big industry, the dental industry that's tied in with the fertilizer industry that has control of the EPA. So it has to start from the beginning, and when the people lead, the leaders will follow. And I hope Bennington can continue to keep it out of the water. Thank you.
I want to be very appreciative of the fact that I was allowed to be part of this panel. I want to thank the Bennington Citizens Against Water Fluoridation for inviting me. Thank you for being here and hosting this and being part of the panel, folks. Please remember that this is a multifactorial problem. Therefore, there's not one simple solution. Dissolving something in our municipal water supply is not the intended the solution to this problem. There are a number of things that affect mental health, from smoking cigarettes to eating carcinogenic treats, to having dry mouth induced by your doctor with medications prescribed for ADHD, and basically knowing how to take care of yourself. It's hard being an American sometimes, and when you see a problem around you, sometimes you lose sight of the true goal here. Freedom of choice is the thing here, folks. We need to take care of people who have dental problems, not treat people who have dentures with water fluoridation, treat people who have liver issues who should have fluoridation, treat people with their tap water for their problem of dental decay that they don't have because they have perfectly good teeth, and people who have kidney issues, which are going to be on the rise with this diabetes epidemic. We have to be really thoughtful. I applaud the Bennington Moral Health Coalition for bringing this initiative forth. I don't agree with it, but I think that having this open discourse is going to help us all be more aware of the fact that we need to do something, and we need to be a true coalition and work together to have this work in a better way. Let's get the minds and the mouths and not put it in water down our toilets and down drains.
Fluoride doesn't treat the water, it treats the people that drink the water. And I believe that this makes it not a public health issue. I believe that individuals have the right to make a decision of what to put in their mouth. And I'd like to end by saying that my mother-in-law called me today quite upset. Her and I have had a lot of conversations. She doesn't want fluoride in her water. And she got her absentee ballot today, and she called me and she goes, I don't understand this Article 15. I thought it was going to ask me if I wanted to put fluoride in the water, and I was going to say no, but it says, should we add to the natural fluoride already in there? So she said there's already fluoride in there, and she was very confused, and she's very mentally alert. And she was very confused, and I explained to her, that yes, it did mean they wanted to add fluoride to the water. But if she's confused, think of the other people that are confused who don't have anybody to call. And this is such a misleading question and very inappropriate. So I urge everybody to read the question carefully, ignore they're going to fix the dental decay in the town, and vote no on Article 15, vote no for fluoridation.
I'd just like to end with a few thoughts I'd like to, that they should keep in there. mind. One is about the so-called cost effectiveness of water fluoridation. There are many hidden costs. It's not all about just the fluoride chemical that they put in the water. It's actually quite costly, and in ways that they would never admit to. When people are getting sick, you have to add that into the mix as well. And for the first time in 70 years of fluoridation, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've witnessed for the very first time a turnaround in the direction of fluoridation, that many municipalities are taking it out of the water. So have hope that it will happen. Oh, that's right. You try to keep it. It's actually easier to keep it out, but this is a good precedent anyway. People are getting rid of it. It's more reason not to start it in the first place. There are many sources of fluoride exposure. You need to understand that. And virtually all of them are not natural. You don't need fluoride in the water. Fluoride is extremely toxic. Extremely toxic. No matter how diluted it is, it's extremely toxic. It is bioaccumulative. It stores in bones, teeth, glands, in the brain. This is key. That's a key argument to remember. It's a known enzyme inhibitor and endocrine disruptor. That's really bad for your body. It's known to depress the thyroid. And there's lots of people who have thyroid conditions these days that never used to before. Yes, there's politics. Politics is certainly involved, and so is much vested monetary interest on any levels with this thing. This is not a pure thing of, oh, it's going to fix your teeth. There's a lot of reasons for this. There's a book, by the way, called The Fluoride Deception. It's a wonderful book. It's nothing but, it's like a history of fluoridation. It will answer many questions of why are we doing this. The script that proponents use is as old as fluoridation. It hasn't changed in 70 years. The science of fluoridation is the same as tobacco science, and is apparently the only science I've ever heard of that hasn't changed in 70 years. It's a sacred cow that must not be questioned. This is not science, this is religion. No one can assure safety on any level. There are overfeeds and spills that are common and can be extremely hazardous to humans and other life forms. If there was ever a need to invoke the precautionary principle, this is it. Kathleen already explained about the precautionary principle. Please look by it. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank everyone for joining us, for our wonderful audience, and for each of the panelists. You've all really helped me, and I hope that the people of Bennington understand much more about what challenges and opportunities you face. So please get out and vote, and please read the question and talk to people about it in advance.